Hi everybody, Tim again. Today I wanted to do something a little bit different than the top 10 lists you see everywhere else on YouTube. The top 10 greatest albums of all time, the top 10 greatest singles of all time, the top 10 greatest guitar players, the top 10 worst bass players, the top 10 greatest drum fills, the top 10, I don't know, it goes on and on and on. But I'm going to do my own top 10 list, so I thought it would be fun. My take, though, was I wanted to try something a little bit more personal, and I'm doing the top 10 songs that make me, me. The songs that, if you listen to them, you kind of understand who I am. The songs that have stuck with me over the years, so not too many new songs on the list. These are the ones that have kind of built up who I am as a person. There's always that song that somebody can go back to and say, that song really hit me hard. That song really made me feel something deep. That song, that melody has just stuck with me for years and years. So it's kind of the songs like that, you know, the lyrics really stuck with me, or the sound of the instruments is something that was really defining for me as I was becoming a musician myself. So let's dive right in. I should also add that I'm not going to actually put the songs in the video. I'm still very new to the YouTube thing, and I know that there is some dark voodoo that goes on with bands that block stuff on YouTube, so I don't want to get my video dinged. I don't want to get something blocked. So what I think I'm going to try and do is I'm going to build a playlist that I will link below, and I will just link you straight to the videos for that band and that song. Number 10 is Don't Stop Believin' by Journey. Now, I know this is an obvious choice if you're a Journey fan. It's one of the, if not their most popular song. Maybe like Faithfully or Open Arms would be a top contender too. But really, it's not the popularity of the song that really gets into it for me. It is when I finally learned how to play the piano part on keyboard for the first time. That was a milestone for me. That was being able to do something really impressive. Up until that point, and you might argue even after that point, because it's really the only song I really learned how to do it well on, everything that I did on the keyboards was pretty static with the left hand. You know, I could bounce an octave and keep like an eighth note rhythm, dun 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 dun, and do some other stuff with my other hand and play a melody or play a lead or some other fancy chords and all. But Don't Stop Believin' was the first time that I really learned how to make my left hand groove on a piano. It's odd that it gives me such a problem on keyboard, but when I play guitar, it's not an issue. I can play leads and fancy chords and stuff just fine on a guitar, and you're doing that with your left hand if you're a right-handed guitar player. But you take that left hand and you put it on piano keys, and suddenly I'm like, So it was an achievement for me as a musician, and it's not the greatest song in the history of mankind. It's a good song. I love the song. But every time I hear it, I always think, yeah, I got it. That was one that I learned how to do, and I learned how to do it right. And if you ask me to play it today, it's going to suck because I haven't practiced it in years. But I remember playing it in my band in 1988, sitting in our buddy's living room for band practice and getting that one right. And that always felt amazing to me. So that's number 10. Number 9 is Sabotage, When the Crowds Are Gone. Now, if you're a metalhead, you probably have heard of Sabotage. If you're not a metalhead, you're going, oh. And I guarantee, though, you will recognize their little side project that some of the guys in Sabotage put together a few years back. They tour around, they do like some Christmas shows. It's the Trans Siberian Orchestra. Sabotage is the band that TSO grew out of, essentially. Most of the guys that were in Sabotage went on to form Trans Siberian Orchestra, and now that's what they do full time. And Sabotage is kind of, I think it's kind of flipped now. Sabotage is the side project for TSO. That may not be accurate. That's just how I see it. But anyway, When the Crowds Are Gone was off the Gutter Ballet album. That was really when I discovered the band. They'd been around for several years, but I'd heard of them peripherally, but that was the first album I remember seeing them on. And that song, it's the lyrics, man. It's about a musician. He's aging. He's really gone down the whole rock star path and just blown himself out. And now, as he's getting older and his life is coming to a close, he's realizing all the time that he wasted just not taking advantage of the opportunities he had before him. The lyrics, how's it go? I never wanted to know, I never wanted to see. I wasted my time till time wasted me. I never wanted to go, always wanted to stay, because the person I am are the parts that I play. And as a musician, that line just kills me every time. It sticks with me. It's something that pops up whenever I'm thinking about, man, I really haven't played anything in a long time, and oh, that lyric just comes out of nowhere and gets me right in the gut. So that's number 9. Number 8. If there are more than 2 people watching this video who have heard of this next band, I want you to leave a comment because I need to know who you are. There's only myself and my buddy Eric Brock that have ever talked about these guys. Maybe a handful of people I knew in college that I showed the album to, but really not a lot of people know who this band is. It's a band called Mr. Reality, and the song is called In My Yard. It was an album that was released back in like 91, I want to say. Pretty close to around there, 91, 90, maybe 92, somewhere in that vicinity. I think it was 91. But anyway, it was an awesome album by a trio of guys, and it was all acoustic. I think they only used like an electric guitar on maybe one song. The band didn't even have a drummer. On the album, they just used like a session drummer to fill in some of the song, but live, it was just the 3 of them, a vocalist, an acoustic guitar, and an acoustic bass, and the guitar players sang backup as well. And they had the most amazing harmonies and such good songwriting. Everything on that album was just jaw-droppingly good to me. But the song that really stands out for me on that album was called In My Yard. And it's a story about growing up in a small town as a kid, and you have your friends, and everything seems so great when you're a kid. And then he talks about it, and some years went by and the town began to rot. Seemed like all the bullies must have lived on my block. And it takes a really kind of a downward turn to talk about life in America at the time. And really now, today, even, I think the song is still relevant today. As you get older, you start seeing the things in the world as they really are. When you're a kid, everything's great. It's playing in your yard with your friends, and you make up games, and everybody gets along. And as you get older, you start seeing that, some kids don't have great relationships with their family. And as you get older, you have to have a job, and it stinks, and it just sucks things out of you from what you wanted to do. The lyric that always stuck out in that song to me was near the end of the song. It's in the third verse, and he talks about, now I've got big dreams about making a big sound, and you know what they say about keeping a good man down. And that song really always stuck with me. And that whole album, really, anytime I'm stuck for a songwriting idea, I go back and I listen to that album and I find something, some little nugget of a chord change or a sentence structure or some kind of a way to approach a topic lyrically that just always helps me out of that rut. So number 8, In My Yard by Mr. Reality. Number 7 is Faithless by Rush. That song really, I love that song because I'm an atheist. And I love that they managed to put what it means to me to be an atheist into words in such a great way. The chorus to that song is, I don't have faith in faith. I don't believe in belief, but I still believe in love, and that's faith enough for me. I'm probably remembering the lyric wrong now. I don't have it in front of me right now, and it has been a while since I actually listened to the song, but it's another one of those songs that really, when you want to get down to the core of who is Tim, well, that's a part of it. I mean, you know, people's beliefs, their religion or their non-religious beliefs, those matter. Those are things that are important to talk about. And that's something that really struck home for me was, hey, there's a band out there that has really, they're a band that has really embraced their non-belief and managed to do it in a way that I think is respectful for other people who may not share that non-belief, but it can at least say that, look, you know, this, you know, just because you don't believe in God doesn't make you a bad person. There are wonderful people who are atheists, and some of them are in Rush. Number 6 is by Triumph, and it's the song Magic Power. Triumph has a lot of great songs, and I know Triumph fans would probably point to something more obvious like Lay It on the Line or Fight the Good Fight, but it really goes back to the lyrics for me. Magic Power. It's that power of music, you know, laying in your room, you've had a crap day and you just want to sit and listen to some tunes and let the tunes uplift you and get you out of that rut. And the song just really speaks to that for me. And it's one of those songs that if I'm in a bad mood, I can put that one on. Bad mood goes away. Okay, we are breaking into the top half of the list with number 5. And it is Van Halen, Top of the World. From the For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge album, I'm going to shock some people right now. As far as the Van Halen camp goes, I prefer Sammy. Please don't kill me. David Lee Roth is fantastic, do not get me wrong. But I like Sammy's voice overall better. I just do. And the guitar riff to that song, man, that is such a catchy tune. And it's one of those really, when I need a feel-good song, when I need something to pick me up out of a deep funk, Top of the World is going to get it for me. That is that song that just picks me back up out of the gutter and slaps me around and says, you know what? You're not too bad, Tim. Get on top of the world. Okay, the lyrics don't actually say that, but I mean, that's how it makes you feel. Okay, so number 4 is the song Surrounded by Dream Theater. And really this choice was almost Pull Me Under from the same album, Images and Words, back in 92. It was really it's kind of a tie, but I'm going with Surrounded because that song, I think, speaks to me more as a person and my interests and the kind of melodies and musical tastes that I have. If you ask me what the best Dream Theater song is, or what song somebody who's never listened to Dream Theater should start with, Pull Me Under is just going to spill out of my mouth because it's the obvious choice. It's the one that if you're not a Dream Theater fan, you might have actually heard of it. You might already know the song, so you might be familiar with it. But really, when I get back into who I am and what songs make me, me, hence the title of the video, it's Surrounded. It's that keyboard intro. It's, I'm always a sucker for a cool piano layered with a string kind of sound, and that song has pretty much the blueprint for that kind of a sound. I'm still very much a keyboard player at heart. And you might argue, if you have known me musically over the years, you might argue that I'm a better guitar player than I am a keyboard player, but my brain still works a lot more like a keyboard player. And I'm always still more interested in the synth sounds that you hear in songs, and especially in rock music. There's not a whole lot of great keyboard stuff out there. I mean, there is, but in the heavier stuff, the more metal stuff, keyboards are a lot more in the background, but my ear always kind of gravitates towards that. So that's where I go. Also, Surrounded has one of the coolest mountain moment guitar solos that I've ever heard. And if you don't know what a mountain moment is I have to explain it because it's just me and my buddy. Something we came up with years ago, watching, of all things, a Doane Perry drum instructional video. Doane Perry was a drummer in, I think it was Jethro Tull. At least he was at some point. And he had a drum instructional video that my buddy bought. And it was a really informational video, but we always noticed there were these moments in songs, and he had a ton of them on this video, where if it's the old 80s or 90s music video on MTV, the band is on top of a mountain and wind is blowing through their hair and they look majestic and it's awesome. And there's just that moment of, the great fist shaking in the air and everybody looks awesome. That's the mountain moment of the song. And the guitar solo in Surrounded, when it kicks in, man, that is a mountain moment for me. So number 4 is Dream Theater, Surrounded. Number 3, Ace Frehley, Rip It Out. Now, I know that this is Ace Frehley's first solo album, back when they did the 4 Kiss solo albums back in the 70s. So technically it's not a Kiss song, but for me, it's the first Kiss song that I learned how to play, because Ace is such an integral part of Kiss. When he plays something, it's Kiss. I mean, come on. Am I right? Rip It Out was the first song I learned to play of a Kiss song, and I played that and I sang that for a while in one of the first bands I was in. Not the first band, actually the second band I was in. First band I played guitar in. That was always so much fun to play. I loved playing that tune. Never learned the lead because that was our lead guitarist's job, and I was not that good yet. I had just picked up the guitar when I joined that band. I was a keyboard player mainly, and the guys that I was in the band with really wanted a rhythm guitar player more and said, yeah, we'll do some keyboard stuff, but we need a rhythm guitarist. Can you learn? And I was like, well, give me a guitar. I'll give it a try. And here I am years later, and I think I'm probably better on guitar than I am on keyboards, even though I still think like a keyboard player a lot of the time, if that makes any sense to anybody. But I've got nothing but fond memories about playing Rip It Out, and that main riff, it still manages to find its way into my fingers anytime I'm just absent-mindedly strumming away on a guitar. Number 2 is Time Stands Still by Rush. You can pick a billion other Rush songs that are more epic or more influential from a musical standpoint, or that have a lot more time changes or something, something very Rush-esque. But for me, it goes down to the lyrics. Every time I get to that line, summer's going fast, nights growing colder, children growing up, old friends growing older, freeze this moment a little bit longer, make each sensation a little bit stronger. I mean, I'm dead just thinking about it, not even hearing the song. It gets to me And every year as I get a little bit older, it gets to me more and more. And like, I'm sinking down on my seat. It's that song speaks to me. Rush is amazing, and I'm so sad they're gone. I really wished my kids would have been old enough to go and see a Rush show with me. I think they're just about to that age now, and of course it's been, 2 or 3 years since they decided to call it quits, and that's just my luck. But Time Stands Still, Rush, number 2. Okay, before we get to the number 1 pick on my list of top 10 songs that make me, I got a couple of honorable mentions to get through. The first one is from Brian May, who everybody knows as the lead guitarist for Queen, but this is a little side project that he did. Very, very little known album. Only a handful of people I have ever spoken to. Unless you're like a diehard Queen fan, you've probably not heard about this one. But it was something he did called Brian May and Friends, the Starfleet Project. And what he did was he just called a bunch of his buddies over into the studio and they just jammed for a weekend. And he picked through it and found a few good things to keep and released an EP. And one of those songs was the title track called Starfleet. And the other guys I should mention that were in the band with him, there was a guy named Phil Chen who I believe played, was he bass or was he keyboards? I can't remember now. There was Phil Chen, and there was the drummer from REO Speedwagon, and there was another studio guy that he knew. But another special guest he had on the album was Eddie Van Halen. So you've got an album out there, people, with Brian May and Eddie Van Halen trading licks, and it will melt your face off, and you will love it. And the song is the Starfleet Project, which is really kind of a joke song. He picked it. It's a children's show in Japan that his son watched, and he picked it up and learned the melody on the guitar, and they played it and just jammed it. And it's like, oh my God, it's like a 15 or 20 minute jam session on this goofy kids science fiction show. It's not, you'd think Starfleet, you would think Star Trek, but it's not. It's a different show entirely. And I've never seen it, but man, they go back and forth for just ever and ever and ever, trading solos, Eddie and Brian, and it is unbelievable. Like, there are some parts where, as different, as disparate as Eddie and Brian May's sounds are, there are points where you almost can't tell who's playing what unless you really, really sit and dissect the tone and go, oh, okay, that one's Brian. Because there's stuff that sounds like either one of them could be playing it. It's just jaw-droppingly good. And so that's one of my honorable mentions. Okay, and my other honorable mention is Mr. Big, Green Tinted 60s Mind. This is a song back when they were really, really blowing up. It was back around the time of I'm the One Who Wants to Be With You. And I forget what the other single was off that album, but it was around then. It was the same album. And they were just all over the place. They were all over MTV. They were huge. And that song just takes me back to a happy time in my life. It's weird when you look back at yourself as a younger person and you think, oh, that was such a happy time. But then you think, I was in college, I was completely broke, and let's face it, people, I was an idiot. If you knew me back in my college days and you thought, oh, Tim's a fun guy, he's a nice guy to be around, thank you very much. But let's be honest, I was not together yet. I was a wreck. But Green Tinted 60s Mind, that song is just so much fun. And it's one of those things that I loved the sound of. And And I always remember the funny thing they put on the lyric sheet in the album was they talked about how it's strange but true that all of these old movies from the 60s have a sort of a green tint to them. And you look back and yeah, they kind of do look a little greenish. So the song was about the green tinted 60s mind. And it was just such a fun time for me. All right, so this is it. The end of the list. The number one song that makes me Tim. And it is Jump by Van Halen. Now, if you think that's a silly choice and that's just a cheesy song, you are wrong. Get all of the hate out of your life. That song is the song that started everything for me. It was on the 1984 album, but it was actually released in December of '83. And when that song came out, I knew that was the moment that I decided I need to play music. I want to play music. I want to do that thing that I'm hearing. And I have vivid memories, and I wonder if there's any video of it. I think I was over at a buddy's house, and they had, like, you know, the old Giganto home VHS video cameras, and we were in his basement playing along, making our own music video for the song. And, you know, we didn't have instruments or anything. I think I was banging keyboards on a double level dollhouse, looking like the sloped roof was two keyboards that I was playing on. And he had, I don't know, probably a broomstick or something for a guitar, or some cutout out of cardboard or something. And we were just jumping around trying to do the kicks like David Lee Roth and just, you know, acting like fools. But we had such a blast. And that was the point where we're like, you know what? We should get some real instruments and try to do this ourselves. And I remember begging my aunt and uncle, who I lived with at the time, for a keyboard to play on. And I finally got a little, I mean, it was like, you know, maybe that wide Casio keyboard with the little mini keys on it. And I got a book of sheet music, and I taught myself how to play. I learned how to play Jump from that little keyboard in that old songbook I'd found. They had released the 1984 album on sheet music. I went to Willis Music in Tri-County Mall down by Cincinnati. I don't even know if it's there anymore. I haven't been back that way in years. But I went in there and found the sheet music and took it home and got my little keyboard out, and I learned to play the intro to Jump. And I learned to play, I think, just about everything except the keyboard solo right away. It took me a few months more to actually learn how to play the keyboard solo. But that song is so ingrained in my psyche. That sound, that Oberheim XA, OBXA sound, the synth was just such a part of my DNA now. It's ingrained in me. It's a part of me. I can't define myself without that sound, that song. If I'm looking at keyboards even today, I will look for that sound immediately. If I can't mimic that sound immediately, I don't even care what the rest of the keyboard can do. I really don't. I mean, I don't care how fancy it is. If I can't play Jump on it, I don't want it. Seriously. I don't care how cool it is. You show me all the bells and whistles in the world. If I can't do that little 2 oscillator detuned sawtooth wave and play Jump, I'm not interested. My interest is just going, ew. So that's it for me. That's where I am. Whenever I start up a keyboard, the first thing I do is I find that sound. I just start jamming. I don't even necessarily play Jump all the time, but I use that sound, and that's where things come from for me. And it's just been the song that has stuck with me through my entire life. I'm almost 50 years old now, and I discovered that song when I was 13 years old. And so, you know, what is that? 37 years of my life I have spent with that song as the most important song in my life. That's the song that when you ask yourself, who is Tim Brown? Well, listen to Jump. There I am. I'm right there. And that's it. Okay, that was my list. I want to know what your list is. Leave me a comment down below. Tell me the songs that make you yourself. Who are you? Who are the songs that make you who you are? I want to know. I want to, make your own video and link back to me so we can watch it ourselves. I want to find out what you guys are thinking and tell me what you think about this video. Leave a like, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.